Ooh, a spicy question. I
because
love
the writing is sort of everything, right? Like you kind of can fix plot holes, but if the writing isn't
So some
there,
readers love that, and some readers are like, but I wanted more of this. So it's kind of a gamble.
Hello and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. On today's episode, I am joined by literary agent Kiya Evans. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming on. I like to start off whenever I speak to agents with the sort of path that led you into becoming a literary agent. So let's begin with, did you always have your sights set on working in the publishing industry?
Not really, to be honest. I've always loved books growing up. Like it was, my every waking moment that I wasn't kind of studying or with my friends or, that sort of thing was spent reading. Mm-hmm. I used to kind of fall asleep with a book, wake up, turn over and just like have the book next to me and start reading it again. But I think that was a very pure love of reading. It wasn't really like a one day I'm going to work in publishing sort of thing.
Yeah.
And actually, I think, initially I thought I wanted to go into maybe academia. I'm a very kind of like inquisitive person. I really love learning. And so that kind of felt like it made the most sense. Like that's, professional learning is working in academia in theory. And then kind of decided, maybe I want to go into theatre. So I did a bit of kind of, these are all kind of like storytelling things, I guess. But yeah, when I was at university, I was a producer at a kind of student theatre company, thought maybe I wanted to be a producer, and then kind of fell into publishing in a way. I mean, being an agent wasn't a job that I knew existed, so I didn't really know that I wanted to do it. But once it kind of, started happening and I kind of found it, I realized it was kind of a mix of, left brain, right brain, creativity and business and strategy that really suited me and my personality. And then looking back on when I had done the kind of producing stuff, that was a very similar sort of role. It was very much born out of not wanting to be on stage myself. So being like, I can be the organizer behind the scenes and, deal with contracts and funding and, scheduling and things like that. That is very much part and parcel of being an agent and an agent's assistant. But it wasn't something that I really knew existed. Yeah. I kind of just thought that working in publishing was like, you work in editorial.
Yes. I think a lot of people, that's how people see it. They're like, oh, you want to be a publisher? Oh, you want to be an editor then?
Yeah.
Or like you design covers,
yeah.
That's basically it.
I think my understanding of publishing came from like rom-coms. It was like you work in a bookshop or you're like a high-powered editor. It was basically like all I could think of was like, it's You've Got Mail.
Yes. Yeah, or like One Tree Hill, I think was what I thought being an author was like. You just write something and then a week later it's an international bestseller.
That actually is how it happens, Jamie.
Yes,
I don't know
exactly.
if you know, but No, that would be nice. But
that's so interesting. I think that's a great way of describing being an agent as well, that you're combining left brain and right brain, because like you said, you have all of the like logistics and the sort of kind of documentation and strategy of the business side of things, but also the modern day agent is very creative. You're doing a lot of editorial with your authors.
Yeah, totally. And it's I'm very lucky that I enjoy like, both aspects of the job. Like I always say to people, but I love contracts. Like it's a real, I just love contracts, which is very lucky in this job. I find them very kind of like fun to kind of, look at and strategize and check and negotiate. But, the editorial element of the job is the bit that it doesn't feel like working, which is always amazing. It's, when you read something or you're editing something and you are just kind of so in it that you're like, I don't feel like how is this my job? It's such a kind of privilege to be able to do that. But I do think it is, like you say, like what most people think the job is just like you're sitting around reading all the time, which, you know, would be nice, but it's not all that.
Yeah, you're just sitting reading submissions, right? That's it. That's the whole job.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, and then am I right in thinking that you're kind of, you got your foot in the door as an intern at Mushins Entertainment?
I did. So I graduated from university in 2019, and in that kind of like still, you know, not really know what I wanted to do, thinking maybe I wanted to go into academia, I was like, might as well do a master's. Why not? So I kind of was looking at doing a master's and decided actually I'd had a very kind of, you know, I hadn't taken a gap year between school and university, and I thought actually maybe I should take some time to really think about what I do. It would be nice to maybe have some money as well. That would be lovely.
Yeah.
And so I moved back home. I'm from the Midlands, I'm from Coventry. Moved back home and kind of was just applying for jobs and doing everything that people do as like a cliche out of uni, you know, thinking, am I going to go traveling? Am I going to do a master's? You know, trying to work it out. And then obviously March 2020 kind of scuppered all of those plans because the pandemic hit. Don't know if you know. And so I was, you know, like 21, out of uni. There was hiring freezes everywhere. Like I would go on, you know, job websites and things like Creative Access, because I kind of did think at that point, you know, maybe I'll look at publishing, and there was nothing. It was empty. And I kind of was just trying to make things work. Like I was doing a bit of tutoring, freelance writing. Like it was very kind of mishmash. And, you know, very lucky that I was just able to live with my parents and be at home. But I really am not someone who thrives on not having anything to do.
Right.
So I remembered stumbling across a blog post, I think it was, that Jessie Burton had written. And I think it's quite a famous blog post in kind of writing circles, but it's basically about how she got her agent, who was Juliet Mushins. And I had remembered reading it and thinking, wow, like an agent, that is a cool job. That's so interesting. It just really sparked something in my brain. And so I decided that summer, when I'd kind of been like trying to, you know, reach out to people on Twitter, and, you know, kind of get my foot in the door somewhere. I just remember looking up the kind of Mushins website and being like, wow, they're doing really cool stuff. And I've actually read a lot of these books that Juliet represents. And so I just sent a cold email on a Sunday, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, it's something that I always, my younger sister's like 5 years younger than me and, you know, works in theatre, but when she was trying to get her foot in the door, my big advice was always just like, just cold email, cold message, make it really personal, make it clear that you are engaged with who they are and what they do. But that's kind of what I did. I think I wrote a very earnest email to Juliet, basically saying, if you have any advice or if you're looking for kind of someone to do a bit of work experience, I would be so grateful. And, you know, ever efficient Juliet and Liza, they got back to me the next day and they were like, yeah, cool, let's do a Zoom. And, you know, it was kind of a I guess, personality check / job interview. And kind of immediately they were like, great, you know, could you start reading and doing an internship for us like next week? And basically it sounded like it was a mix of, and this is a big lesson for publishing, it was a mix of like hard work, luck, and timing. It just worked out that I had emailed when they had been talking about setting up an internship, and it was easier for them to just take me than it was to advertise, I guess.
But that's great.
Yeah, no, I mean, amazing for me. But yeah, that was kind of how I got my foot in the door. So that was summer of 2020. It was supposed to be 2 weeks. It has not been 2 weeks, as you can probably tell. But
yes,
it was supposed to be 2 weeks, just basically reading submissions, and I kind of just interned there the whole summer, and they just kept extending it, and eventually Liza was promoted, and I got a text from Juliet being like, do you want to be my assistant?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that aspect, I guess, is quite rom-com, but yeah.
And then once you're an assistant at a literary agency, you're sort of in the sort of the path kind of guides you towards then becoming,
yes.
And you became an associate agent after that.
Yeah. It was a couple years of being an assistant, maybe 3 years, I think.
At what point do you start building your own list? Like, when were you still an assistant when you signed your first author, or had you become associate agent at that point?
I was an assistant. Yeah. So I'm trying to think how long it would have been being an assistant. So, I mean, I started kind of being an assistant early 2021, and obviously we were basically still in lockdown at that point, or, some form of lockdown. So I didn't actually meet the team in person until that summer. And, we moved into an office in the September. So it was a lot of remote working for the first 6 months, which I think is really hard as an assistant. Like you learn so much by osmosis, by just being in the room with, your boss, who is much more established than you and practiced than you, and just overhearing conversations, being able to turn your screen and be like, does this email make sense? Those are things that you really kind of pick up by being in an office. And so for me, it was really valuable to kind of have that time and experience doing that. And then, but yeah, I think I signed my first client probably about 3 years ago, around now. So I must have been an assistant for about 2 years, just over 2 years. And it was very much a case of, I wasn't open necessarily to submissions, but I was doing a lot of kind of reading prize anthologies and, short story prizes and, like Faber Academy anthologies, stuff like that. Basically kind of doing a little bit of hunting rather than people coming to me. And that I think that's quite common. And I mean, I still do that now. Like, that is still something that I like doing, is kind of trying to find people who, might be putting work out there, but aren't necessarily actively querying. That's always a kind of fun conversation to have with someone of like, oh, I saw your sample in an anthology. Have you got anything longer for me to read? And I think that is quite a common way that kind of junior agents or, assistants get their foot in the door. And I wasn't working at a big agency where I was able to kind of, I think at big agencies, a lot of assistants inherit authors because they've queried their boss, or, things like that. There's ways of people building a list that's not necessarily having their submissions open, but being at a very, very small agency, like there was, 4 or 5 of us, it was a bit more of a kind of proactive way of finding clients, I suppose.
Yeah, and I've heard sometimes it can be that you would be reading some submissions and it wouldn't be right for one of the more senior agents' list. But but you say, oh, I actually love this, and they say, yeah, if I had space on my list, I would take this, and then the younger agent would end up getting
totally, and that's how I've signed several clients, is they've queried someone, and I mean, it's the case everywhere. It's a case even. It's not something that necessarily just kind of junior agents do or assistants do, but I do think that is how you get a start. Is like your boss doesn't have the space to take something on, or they feel like, they've got enough fantasy on their list, they've got enough crime and thriller on their list for now. But there's something in this submission that comes in, because I think, I mean, that's the thing with, no agent wants to kind of miss out on something. And so, it only benefits the agency if there's a kind of more junior person there with more, in theory, more time, but definitely more space on their list to take something on and put the time and energy into that. And it could always be the thing that, kind of catapults your list or starts you off, and it's very exciting. It's a very exciting part of the job, but it's often, I think, one of those things that, like you say, it kind of comes about more informally. So
yeah. And so, okay, so 2020 you start as an intern.
Yes.
Then you stay the course, and you're an associate
They don't
agent.
get rid of me.
You're at Mushins for 5 years, I think, and then you last year you moved over to
Yes,
to join Catherine Cho and the team at Paper Literary.
Yeah, so five-ish years from like that first internship. So yeah, I moved over to Paper Literary in kind of about a year ago, which is crazy to think about that it's been a year. But yeah, it just felt like the right time, the right kind of move. And it's always kind of nerve-wracking, I think. I mean, I'd never moved jobs before, so it was very like I was very uncertain about what kind of was going to happen. And, you know, publishing is a very, very, very people-centered industry. Like you want to maintain, you know, good relationships with people, and I do have good relationships with people. But I think there's always the worry of like, oh, what if I move and like something, you know, it's you want to keep it. Everyone knows everyone. It's a very, very small industry, and you know, I would talk to people who, my friends, or you know, I have a lot of have a big Irish family. I have a lot of older cousins, and I would talk to them about when they moved jobs, and you know, they all worked in jobs where when they left, it was like, well, I'm never going to see them again. But I was very aware that, like, you know, this is a small industry, and you want to make sure that you're like keeping good relationships. So yeah, it was very daunting moving, but it was. But yeah, I moved about a year ago, basically, to Paper.
Yeah. And absolutely a common thing. Most agents are at some point in their career moving between agencies or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I'm always curious, like when it comes to your list, obviously you started that list at Mushins. When you move to a different agency, do you just kind of take that list with you, or does like some of them stay, some of them go? How does it work?
So I took my clients with me, and I mean, it's different in different agencies, but I mean, it was very kind of clean and happy, and you know, it was all pretty. It worked out really well.
Great.
And there was one client who stayed with Mushins, but that was a kind of mutual decision, and that was to do with kind of like them being in contract, and it just making more sense for them to stay with the agency that had those contracts. So that was the only one that kind of that stayed. But again, that was, I mean, even that decision kind of felt like it came out of like a strategy thing of me and them talking and being like, you know, it does make more sense like for you to stay where they're like invested in you like contractually. Yeah. So it was, but it was pretty clean generally. And it is very common when people move. I mean, I think, you know, authors, it's completely understandably anxiety inducing for authors, I think, when they when there's change or when things move, you know, like there's a lot of change, like moving in publishing, like agents, but also, you know, editors move, and it's always a bit of, I think, disorienting, but it went really well.
Yeah. I mean, it's scary just because someone's basically saying like, oh, you know, things are shifting in the background, but you don't really, as from the author's perspective, like logistically, not much, I imagine, changes because their relationship with you is the same. They're still contacting you in the same way.
Totally.
It's just you have a different name above your head, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I'm at a different desk, basically. I'm in a different office. But I'm still me. And I think that is one of the really lovely things about this job is that you have a very personal or kind of specific relationship with clients and with authors. Like you're never kind of like you should kind of be that steady thing, that stable kind of person. And you know, your clients have a relationship with you, and hopefully they trust you. Like the whole relationship is based on trust. So yeah, I mean, when I told my clients that I was going to be moving agencies, it was completely fine, and you know, they were all just like excited and happy for me, and you know, sad to be leaving Mushrooms, but they were like, new things, that's exciting.
Yes.
So yeah,
their experience with you, like I said, probably hasn't changed much.
No,
from their point of view. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. And you know, one of the things that really drew me to paper as well was that we have a kind of in-house editor, Melissa, who you know, does edits alongside all the agents, and we always call her our secret weapon. Like, she is so fantastic. She used to work in the foreign rights department at Curtis Brown for, you know, 15, 20 years, and she's an author herself. So she brings and it's such a rare thing as an agent to have a second pair of eyes on something before you send it out, especially if you're junior, you don't have an assistant to read it alongside you. You know, it's kind of just you out there. And that felt like something I could offer. It felt like a great thing to be able to offer clients.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's, I think I have seen a couple of other agencies have an editor in-house, but it's not a common thing. It's not the industry standard. So that's awesome that you guys have that at your disposal.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more common, but yeah.
Yes, potentially. Speaking of your authors and the list itself,
yes,
you are currently open to submissions as you continue to build your list. In a broad sense, then, what are the age groups, the genres, and the styles that you represent?
So I'm a very kind of broad reader. I'm a very, I guess, like voracious reader. I think everyone says in publishing, but I do read, you know, in a lot of different genres and age groups. And so that is kind of reflected in my list and my taste and what I'm looking for. I think you can't, I don't think, separate as an agent what you like to read and what you would want to read from what you represent. Some people do, but just personally, it's not something that I find works for me. So I kind of read, you know, a wide range from like fairly literary upmarket novels. Some of my favorite novels are kind of in that more, you know, literary space, to really commercial books. So, I mean, I think one of the things that I'm always looking for is, and which I do represent, is, you know, romantasy and that kind of, and fantasy in general. And that is a mix of the slightly more grounded, you know, accessible fantasy that I think is very popular right now, to the slightly more kind of epic fantasy. But I think the thing that I'm always looking for across genre is to connect with character, to connect with voice. Voice is very important to me. And also to kind of feel really immersed and swept away, which fantasy is obviously amazing for. I'm also always looking for romance. I love a good love story. And you know, across the novels that I love and across the novels that I'm kind of looking for, I think anything that has like a big love story in it, or, you know, a dynamic between two characters that just, and even if that's like a love story that's between siblings or parents and children, or, you know, is romantic, I think I'm always really drawn to those kind of narratives. And then I also love some, you know, novels that are in that kind of, I guess, like book clubby space, which is always like a hard thing to explain, I think.
To identify, yeah.
Yeah, but I think things that feel kind of thematically quite meaty, it's a horrible word, but I think, you know, that have maybe like a slight kind of mystery element to it, or a slight, a kind of saying something about the world. That's also, you know, I'm always really drawn to. So I think it's a real mix, and it's a horrible, the thing that we hate hearing as agents, which is like, I know it when I see it. But I think generally speaking, it's got to have that mix for me of a kind of like very immersive plot, a very, very kind of singular sense of character or voice. And I love having fun reading, sue me, but I think enjoying reading a book is the thing that I'm always looking for. So I always just want to kind of feel something reading it, whether it's feeling kind of, laughing, or just like feeling very kind of escapist and swept away, or if I'm, if you make me cry in a book, I'll definitely sign it. So there's like a phrase in publishing that's like, if you cry, you buy. So it definitely applies to me and my taste. But in terms of age range, from kind of young adult to adult, I don't go younger than YA.
Okay. I have some further questions.
Of course.
So fantasy is obviously a big part of your list and what you like to read in. You mentioned like romantasy, you mentioned epic fantasy. So I imagine you're talking about things like Brandon Sanderson and things in terms of epic fantasy, and then grounded fantasy, more like kind of fantasy realism. Are you interested in representing like these sort of emerging niche genres within fantasy, like cozy fantasy or like lit RPG?
So I just sold actually a cozy fantasy novel.
Okay.
So definitely interested in that kind of space. And again, I think it's that it's almost like escapism on the other end, rather than it being like, big battles and fight sequences and things like that. It's almost the kind of the opposite end of the escapist spectrum. So definitely cozy fantasy. In terms of epic fantasy or kind of high fantasy, generally speaking, I am more drawn to I guess like grounded contemporary, I guess urban fantasy is maybe what you would call it.
Yes.
But the epic fantasy that I enjoy, or the kind of higher fantasy that I enjoy, always has a kind of, I guess there's always got to be a way in for me, and usually that way in is either it's playing with kind of story tropes that we're already familiar with. It's kind of turning, I guess, traditional stories on their head. I think like someone like, Samantha Shannon is great at that. Or there's kind of I guess like a centering of relationship. I recently read The Island, the Silver Sea by Tasha Suri. And I think that is a fantastic example of a kind of, a secondary world, but it's based on like, it's kind of a pastiche almost of England and the UK. And it's saying something about society now that feels really relevant, but it's packaged in a way that is both a love story and this kind of, I guess like slightly higher fantasy world. So that is kind of my way into things, but definitely open to cozy fantasy and things that aren't necessarily just like London but with a bit of magic, although I love that too.
Okay.
Okay,
so it is quite broad, and
yes.
I know that we talked about it, but there is a sort of element of you're willing to give it a go, and it when you see it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a I think there is an appetite for as romantasy has become so successful and saturated, which is amazing, and I think much more mainstream. I think the lines between these things are becoming much more blurred. And so I never want to be like, I never do this or I never do that. There are definitely some things that I just don't do. I'm not the right person for, but I'm not someone who, the minute I see something, if I saw like a very epic fantasy come into my submission box, I wouldn't immediately be like, oh no, that's not for me, because at the end of the day, like I want to be kind of immersed and swept away, and sometimes that's the vehicle to do that in.
Yeah, because so much of it comes down to voice, the characters, and the kind of setup. Like you said, if there's a way in, any genre could probably work, because like that way in will be universal.
Totally.
So fantasy, thumbs up. Often partnered with sci-fi. Are you also interested in sci-fi, or not quite in the same way?
So sci-fi really interests me, but I think I actually tend to go more slightly more literary, I think, with sci-fi. So I recently read a book called Beautyland by Marie-Helene Bertino. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Which is kind of it's like I think the way that I enjoy sci-fi tends to be sci-fi packaged almost as something else.
Right. Sure.
Something like anything that's in that kind of genre mashup space, I think I enjoy in sci-fi, but I think a straightforward sci-fi I'm not the right person for, to be honest. But if it's a kind of beautifully written or packaged, or a story that's about love and childhood, if it's thematic, then absolutely do send it my way. But I think if it's a very straightforward kind of classic sci-fi adventure, it's just not for me.
Okay.
I'm just not the right. I just don't know enough about the space to kind of do it service.
Right. Yeah. So probably more like speculative fiction and things like that would be more aligned with what you're interested in.
Yeah, I would say speculative is probably a more accurate way of describing my taste in that kind of space. But it's really interesting. Like, I think the romantasy boom, if we want to call it that, it's I think kind of broken open a lot of these genre spaces that for years felt very kind of like clearly demarcated. It felt very much like, well, this is fantasy, this is romance, this is, things like that. And actually, I am such a lover of genre mashups and, things, authors taking risks on genre and playing with genre. And it's heartening that those are the things that feel like people want to read and also are more open to. Like, it's so nice that kind of general readers who never would have picked up a fantasy book before or even thought of themselves as like a fantasy reader are, reading in those spaces. Like, I think it's great.
Yeah, and it works both ways, which is really nice, because I've seen it online where it's like people who have read, who are very much into their epic fantasy are kind of have tried a bit of romance now, and then these people who would used to just read romance are now like moving into the kind of more epic fantasy stuff. They've kind of it works as like a two-way gateway between the genres. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it reminds me of growing up and reading so many kind of like dystopian romances, because in the 2010s, when I was a teenager, it was like everything was the Hunger Games or it was Divergent.
Yes.
And I would just go into Waterstones or into the library and be like, what's next on the shelf, basically? Like, what is in this section? Like, what is the next one? And I think when you find a love for a genre or a kind of style of telling a story, it really cracks open a whole kind of new reading experience for you. And I think you become so voracious that you are just open to reading things that you would not have necessarily been open to reading before. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, awesome. I think that's a pretty good view of kind of what you're looking for in a broad sense. We are at the point in the episode where we head over to the cozy woodland cabin, and I asked you if Kiya, you were snowed in the middle of nowhere in a cozy woodland cabin, which book would you hope to have with you?
I was thinking about this because, again, I think it's that thing of like, what's your favorite book? And I think I would probably bring Fingersmith by Sarah Waters.
Okay.
A lot of my favorite books, when I think back on one of my big favorite books of that I've read in my life, a lot of them fall into this kind of slightly messed up gothic space. Like Wuthering Heights is one of my favorite books ever.
Okay.
And I think the brilliant thing about Sarah Waters and about Fingersmith is that she's doing, again, it's like genre mashup, right? It's a love story, it's a mystery, it's historical. There are just so many, fantastic elements from different genres mashed together in quite an epic novel. And yeah, I think that it would provide me with plenty of reading material for being snowed in, waiting for the storm to pass. And again, fundamentally, it's a love story, and it's a queer love story, which I love. So I think it would have to be Fingersmith. But it was a very hard decision.
Okay, yes. Yeah, it's always a difficult decision.
What's yours?
You know what? I hadn't actually thought about it too much since I changed it.
Not to interview you, but I'm just curious. Like, what is yours?
My usual go-tos are, but I'm one of those people where it's like, ask me next week, and I would have read something else and be like, oh, maybe it should be that.
Yeah, totally. That's me as well. Every time someone's like, "What's your favorite book?" I'm like, "Well, it's the last one I read."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's the last one? Yeah. It's a good question. My safe answers are either The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or Small Gods by Terry Pratchett, which is like not necessarily most people's like first choice for Terry Pratchett, but that's the one that speaks to me the most.
Yeah.
That being said, I have Dungeon Crawler Carl. I have like bought the book. It's on my list. I haven't read it yet, but I'm very excited to read it. And if I was feeling like a gambling man when I went into the cabin, I'd maybe go for that.
Oh, you'd go for something you hadn't read?
Yeah, but I know I'm going to love it because it's okay. I'm a big gamer, and it's very gaming orientated. And some of my friends said it's amazing.
Okay.
So
yeah, I guess as well, like in lieu of being able to bring, your games with you, it's like, well, I'll bring this, which is like this in book form.
Exactly.
The
yes,
book version.
That's exactly what it is. I also feel like since I changed the question, now it's the Cozy Woodland Cabin. It feels like there's less pressure with the Woodland Cabin. Everyone feels like that. Yeah. You're just in there for like a kind of getaway, and it's a bit more chill. With the desert,
it's not like
people will
you're
worry,
stranded.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, I was thinking about it because I was thinking, well, if it was a desert island, it would be a different answer, I think.
Exactly. That's why I changed it.
Yeah.
It kept getting, I was like, I want to see the difference.
And I think I would go for something maybe a bit lighter, like, a beach read versus something that is, cozy and snowed in. So, yeah.
Also, people often went for like survival guides and things with the desert island. No one does that in the cabin.
How to build a boat, 101.
Exactly. Yes. Or like Bear Grylls or whatever, Awesome. So Fingersmith, a cool book, a great addition to the Woodland Cabins library. Next up, we are going to get into the weeds of querying cover letters, all that fun stuff. That will be available at www.patreon.com/right and wrong in the extended episode.
There are so many books published and so many films that come out that we can't all just kind of keep up to date with them.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. But we should have... Hopefully we'll have a sense of what it is, and if it's not, then and we're interested, we will always just Google it.
Yeah. If it's in the zeitgeist, you'll have an inkling of what it's about, and that'll kind of give you a sense of it. Yeah. Okay, great. I think there was a lot of great advice in there, lots that people can take away from there to put into their submissions, put into their queries and their cover letters. And that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much, Kiya, for coming on and chatting with me, telling me all about your journey into publishing and kind of what you're up to as a literary agent. It's been awesome chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a nice chat.
And for anyone listening, if you want to keep up with what Kiya is doing, you can follow her on Instagram at Kiya Evans Agent, or head over to the Paper Literary site, paperliterary.com, to find out more about Kiya and the rest of the team and to look into the submission guidelines. They're all laid out there, so it should be simple enough to do that. To support this podcast, like, follow and subscribe, join the Patreon for ad-free extended episodes, and check out my other podcast, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. Thanks again, Kiya, and thanks to everyone listening. We will catch you on the next episode.